and we have a great conversation planned for you, so thank you for being here. I'm going to introduce the show, and then I'm going to bring on our guests. So our show is called Ask a Political Scientist, and many of you might be wondering, what the heck is political science? Well, political science is an easy two-step process. All it takes is step one, using scientific methods to understand politics, and then step two, be totally ignored by policymakers, voters, and everybody else, including my own family. Now, this show aims to change part two by highlighting all the awesome stuff going on in part one. Today's show is about intersectionality and political representation, and frankly, a whole lot more. Thank you all for being here and joining us. I am going to outline the show and then bring on our first guest. So we are going to talk today in our hour together about intersectionality, about Black women in politics, about the Me Too movement, and only because I'm insufferable, we may sneak in a reference or two to vegan restaurants. There was a very real moment in time where this whole show was just about vegan restaurants. We'll set that aside, but that may or may not come up, and it's not like it hasn't before, but it might be even more likely today. So I am going to bring on our very first guest for tonight. Her name is Nadia Brown. She is a professor of political science and African American studies. She is an affiliate faculty member in women's, gender, and sexuality studies, and she is a university scholar. All of these things she does at Purdue University. She got her PhD at Rutgers and went to undergraduate at Howard University. Nadia, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. I am super thrilled to be here.
Excellent. Well, I have a, what if you were like, don't want to be here. Thanks for making it. I'm so excited that you're here. I have, as those of you who've seen this show before know, I have a very creepy, stalkery rest of an intro for you. Are you ready for a quick review of This Is Your Life as I stalked it on the internet?
Yes, give me all the greatest hits.
All right, the greatest hits. Oh, I just kicked you out. There it is. The greatest hits. Here they come. So Nadia is currently at Purdue, but starting very soon, she will be the new director of Women and Gender Studies at Georgetown University, as well as a professor in the Department of Government and an affiliate professor in the Department of African American Studies. So congratulations to you on this. When do you head to DC?
Thank you. So I start in 2021.
Okay.
So we have another year here being at Purdue, but I'm super excited to get back to the DMV, to get back to DC. Excellent.
Well, we have a lot of people watching who are in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. So I think we are all very excited to have you back. And indeed, if and when you're there, we should meet up in Frederick, Maryland, and go to some vegan restaurants. So,
yes.
So a few, for those of you who don't know Nadia, a few of her awesome accomplishments, and this just barely scratches the surface. So Nadia is the author of a book called Sisters in the State House, Black Women and Legislative Decision Making. It has won like all the awards you can give to a book. There are links under this video. You can check out the comments section. There are links to read more about her book and to buy it. Nadia, we're going to talk a lot about the content of that book shortly, so everyone brace yourselves. She is also the co-editor of a book called Distinct Identities, Minority Women in U.S. Politics. She is the author and co-author of, like, honestly, thousands of articles. Her CV is one of the more insane CVs I have seen in some time. This is just a few of the more recent articles, and we are going to be touching on a lot of the themes that come up here. So Me Too, sexual harassment, Black women academics, Black women as voters, intersectional linked fate. So Nadia, we are going to basically, if I had 10 hours, we would just go line by line through your CV. But as you all can see, she is a prolific scholar, and we're honored that she's with us. She is also the co-editor of Body Politics and the editor of Me Too Political Science. More on that to come. And she is the lead editor for the journal Politics, Groups, and Identities. This is one excerpt that I especially love that was the intro to the volume that then became Body Politics. Nadia, before we dive into the full conversations, can you tell us a little bit about this journal and about Body Politics and kind of what's going on with this work?
Sure. So Politics, Groups, and Identities is one of the journals of the Western Political Science Association. The other one is Political Research Quarterly. And we are a new journal. We're only in its 8th year, but we are a super phenomenal journal because our community is the best. So we publish research on the politics of groups and identities, and
Right.
that's broadly defined. So gender, race, sexual orientation, nativity, immigration, religion. These are some of the topics that we discuss in the pages of the journal, and it's subfields broad. It's a broad subfield, so it's not just American or international or comparative politics, but it's across all the subfields in political science.
Awesome.
And yeah, I'm super proud of the journal. It's actually one of the things that brings me joy in the discipline is being able to edit this journal.
Awesome. And we can unpack your actually one of the things in this field that gives me joy. One of the many things I'm sure that give you great joy. It is a fantastic journal. It is a great community. I don't follow many journals on Twitter, or the ones that I do, I don't engage with. And this is, I've put the Twitter account here. It actually is an account that acts like a human and shares great research. And has recently ungated a lot of papers relevant to race in particular and all the conversations we're having. So do check it out. And this opening article struck me, and there are links to all of Nadia's work below the comments in the video. So it's fantastic work. Thank you so much. Nadia is also a founding board member of a website called Women Also Know Stuff, and it's at womenalsoknowstuff.com and Women Also Know on Twitter. I'm going to put you on the spot again. You want to shout out what's going on with Women Also Know Stuff?
Yeah, so Women Also Know Stuff was a brainchild of Samara Klar back in 2015, 2016, when she noticed that reporters were covering the historic race of Hillary Clinton being the first woman to receive a major party nomination for president. And the only people that reporters were talking to were dudes. And so Samara was like, that's not the business. So she invited a bunch of her friends who also care about gender and gender equity. And they started the site. Before the site launched, they realized that the board was pretty monolithic and they needed some other voices. And then I was asked to join on shortly after they formed in order to bring perspectives of Black women, right, and people of color, and trying to have outreach in that group. So basically, Women Also Know Stuff reminds the discipline that women also know stuff. So next time you're thinking about putting together an all-male panel, next time your reporter is looking for someone to speak with, and there's a host of women who are actually very smart, that we are experts, that we know our things across different kind of subfields. And if you haven't seen us yet, we give away a bunch of swag at political science conferences, so stickers, pins, lanyards, all the like, to help to remind the good folks out there in political science that not just your male colleagues are smart, but women actually know stuff.
Yes, and it's a sad day that we have to remind people of this, and has been for some time, but it's awesome that it exists. And I will say personally, it meant a lot to me. I remember where I was at an APSA conference, the American Political Science Association, our big annual conference, and I walked through and there was a stand with like pins and stickers that said Women Also Know Stuff. And I was like, I feel good that that's happening. Like, I like that that's there. So I appreciate it. And thank you all. And I use it all the time. If something's going on and I'm like, I wonder what the political science has to say about this, I use it. So everyone check it out.
Great database. Yeah, check it out, please. And if you're not a member yet, sign up. There's the website, put your profile in, and then so that people can find you, media can find you, academics can find you, and acknowledge the expert stuff that you actually know.
Yeah. Please submit yourself if you're a political scientist watching. Last thing I want to say before we bring on our second guest is that we are raising money every show in lieu of tickets. We ask for donations, and every week they go to a different organization. This week, donations are going, 100% of donations are going to the Black Women's Political Action Committee. And this is an organization, Nadia, that you have worked with before. Is that right?
Right, yes. So the Black Women's PAC is an organization that my co-author Danielle Lemmy and I have worked with, who has been so gracious to us. So basically, the entire chapter 4 of our forthcoming book is all from the Black Women's PAC. So awesome. They've been so gracious to allow us to interview them, candidates, elected officials, and the director, Tracy Scott, has been super, super gracious of allowing Danielle and I to come in and do research, but to work as partners. And then we actually share our research with the members of the Black Women's PAC. So it's a reciprocal relationship. It's not just researchers coming in and taking knowledge from Indigenous communities, but we're actually sharing back what we do. Wow. So I'm hopeful that people will support the Black Women's PAC, give money to people that are actually promoting Black women elected officials and candidates.
That's Awesome. And I just want to flag for folks watching who are not political scientists, it is shockingly rare that political scientists go out into the field and work with folks and then also share those results openly. And it's a true collaboration. So I'm sorry to say that that's genuinely surprising and awesome. And that part I'm excited to say. Very cool. So we are raising money throughout. So if you're able to, instead of the cost of a ticket, go ahead and make a donation to Ask APS. Let's see, I have the thing here. PayPal.me/AskAPS, and it's also in the comments. But we already have some donations coming in, and we've made over $100 with the Eventbrite and early donations. So hooray! Yay. Thank you all very much. So that is Nadia. We are thrilled that you are here. Nadia, are you ready to meet our second guest for tonight?
I am.
Fantastic. So our second guest tonight, we are very excited to welcome to the show a friend of mine and all-around amazing person, Andrea Coleman. How are you tonight, Andrea?
I'm amazing, and I'm so excited to be here. I'm so excited to hear what Nadia has to say, because I have a secret personal goal that I feel like, she can help me with.
Oh, okay. Well, are we leaving the suspense to come on the?
Are you running for office?
No, I can tell you what it is. I want there to be a Black woman on the Supreme Court.
Oh, yeah.
So that's something that I'm actively working on in my corner. So I'm excited about everything you're talking about, Nadia.
Can that Black woman on the Supreme Court be you? I don't know how the courts work, but can I nominate you? Can we vote for you? What happens?
I don't know that
Is this show enough? What is it? Yeah.
I don't know. I think I've put too many comedy content things online to be seriously considered, but
maybe. Okay, great.
We'll have a president who was a reality television star, so it's a new day and age.
That's true.
Never a better time for folks in media and otherwise to get into political roles. So, Andrea, I also have a nice, creepy introduction for you. Are you ready for me to share what I've found about you on the internet / no from real life?
I'm so ready. I'm very excited.
All right.
Let's go.
So this is Andrea Coleman. She is amazing. You can find her on Instagram at Andrea Coleman Comedy. She is a, brace yourselves, comedian, writer, actress, and attorney, and future Supreme Court judge, as established. You have seen her or read about her all over the place, I am sure. Just a few places that have recognized her brilliance so far: New York Times, Time Out New York, NPR, WNYC, SiriusXM, and the SF Sketchfest, which is a very big deal in comedy and beyond if you aren't familiar with it. So Andrea is an actress and a comedian. She is on a team with UCB Theater. It's a mod team, which is also a very big deal in comedy, which means it's a sketch team. And this is a still, if you will, from a sketch called Tall Girl. Andrea, are you the tall girl in this sketch, or is
one would think I am 5'2", but
me too.
Nice. I try to do it by height, so perfect, great.
Yes, all the things.
I'm actually not the tall girl in this in that sketch, but I play a pivotal role. I say something very funny near the end.
Excellent. And it is a sketch that you can find on YouTube, so go check that out for that funny line. Andrea is also the host of one of my favorite shows happening in the world. It is called Woke Laws. Whack or Woke, Andrea Coleman judges the law. It has been written up extensively in the New York Times. She posts videos on her Instagram account at Woke Laws, where she goes through written laws and decides if they are whack or woke, and they're awesome. She brings on panels of guest judges to help evaluate laws from around the country. And I normally don't put myself in these things, but this picture is so funny to me because I came on the show to help you judge a law about fried chicken. We're tying it back to the vegan piece. And this is me talking look at me. This is such a vegan thing to do, numbering, and another thing about chicken. And your face is amazing. So, anything you want to share to audience about the show? I know we're all, theaters are closed right now, but hopefully it will come back at some point, correct?
Yes, it's in the works for it to come back. We're even talking about doing a virtual show, but in the meantime, I'm developing the show for a podcast. I've recorded a few episodes. So it's definitely going to come back. It has not officially left the building. And you were amazing on the show, Andrea. You were so fun, so physical. She's so I can't tell because she's in a little square right now, but she's such a physical performer and comedian. And there's so many great pictures of you, like using your whole body to tell a joke and everything. You were such great fun.
I really think it's just being an annoying vegan, but I will take all of those nice things. I really will. All right. So last thing I want to say in my stalker opening, and then we'll get into our discussion. Andrea is a prolific essayist, and you can follow her on Medium. And again, there are links under the description for the video. One of my favorite articles is "So You're a White Man Who Wants to Date a Black Woman." And the first line, I would just read this line by line if we had the time. The first line is, "First of all, I applaud your ambition." So that's an amazing opening line. There's other articles that go through specific laws that are fantastic. This one really spoke to me, how to survive when you're a guest in a cold house. I'm cold all the time, so thank you for that. And then these really revolutionized my own awareness of a few things. And I have a lot of family watching, so please give this a read and realize how strange we are. And also the other way around, so 4 tips for white people attending their first Black Thanksgiving. Andrea, I'm very ashamed to share, and maybe I've told you this before, but I had no idea that sweet potato pie was even a thing until I read your Medium article. So
wow.
What? Yeah.
And you're a vegan.
I know. You have to eat all the sweets.
I know. I did get, this is a very, as a millennial, I got a sweet potato scented candle instead. I don't know how to cook. How pathetic is that? All right. So check out Andrea's writings. They are incredible. She is incredible. Both of our guests are incredible. And we are here to talk intersectionality, Black women in politics, Me Too, and obviously vegan stuff will come up even more. So with that, obviously, with that, let us kick it off. So Nadia, for folks watching who don't already know, what is intersectionality, or what does it mean to you in your work?
Sure. So intersectionality is a term that was coined in a 1989 law review by Kimberly Crenshaw, where she maps on the nexus, or where identities meet for some people, are like at the intersection of a busy like street, right? So you have like race and gender, and you get a car crash and you're in the middle. That's Black womanhood, right? Like, there's no way that you can say.
Quite the analogy.
Yeah, like I'm on the Black side of the street today, and I am only Black. Right? But it's really like it's this interlocking, overlapping forms of how identities impact our lives, and how social structures are mediated, I guess, in some ways through these multiple oppressions and privileges based on different kind of identities. And for political scientists, but not really so much us, but women's studies has really claimed this and taken this as like their thing. Sociologists, anthropologists do a much better job than political scientists. But this idea is that these overlapping identities and governing structures and institutions impact us differently based on our intersecting identities. So a Black woman does not experience policing, let's say, the same way that a Black man does, right? Like, there are just some different lived experiences. And there's great scholars like Jennifer Nash, who really tries to decouple Black feminism from intersectionality. So there's one point in political science where political scientists were like, oh, you study Black women? Well, that's intersectionality. And you're like, no, it's not synonymous. So it's really like, like looking at these structures that animate one's life.
So one of the things that we've been talking about on this show is some of the biases in political science. I mean, you mentioned that political science hasn't been amazing about intersectionality. Where does it show up in the research? Is it about voting behaviors, policy impact, not enough, all of the above?
Yeah. So this is very odd because I just did this. I wrote this with a co-author, Sarah Gershon, and one of my grad students, Guillermo Cabrera. We wrote a Oxford bibliography, like this handbook. So like I actually have all of the sections where intersectionality can show up. So it shows up in multiple places. Yes, you see it in policy. You see it in representation literature. You see it in different kind of ways that we think of intersectional identity. So you could see it in sexual orientation. You could, the literature is on like sexuality, sexual orientation. You could see it in immigration literatures. So it's really trying to, it's a theory that has legs that can move beyond just Black women's lived experiences. Although, right, that is where intersectionality started, right? It really gets theorized through Black women's lived experiences. And again, is what leads Jennifer Nash to call intersectionality a sort of Black feminist home truth. These are things that Black women have been theorizing about, that I'm just not Black, I'm just not a woman, right? Like, I'm just not queer, just don't have radical politics. Like, I am all of these things all at once. And then, you know how political scientists do. They were like, I can do that. So they took it and ran with it and applied it to a lot of different things. Some ways that are problematic, some ways that actually shed new light on things like disability theory and the like. So in your book, I want to talk about your first book first, but you have a new book coming up. Let's talk about your first one. You study Maryland legislators, Black women as legislators. What are some of the findings that you are discover in that book about Black women as legislators? And it's not to limit just to these particular groups, but you know, most of folks are studying legislators generally, or women versus men, or Black versus white legislators, et cetera. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. So
yeah, not to summarize the whole field, but there it was. Yeah. And never mind all other non-white groups. Okay. Yeah.
That is exactly what political scientists looking like in the early 2000s. So what I wanted to do in that book, and Sisters in the State House, was complicate how we think about Black women. So I initially had proposed just writing a whole dissertation and a whole study on Black women and what makes us different and unique and similar in some ways. And I was told that you couldn't do that. So I had to do like a comparison. This is what they do. This is how they vote differently than Black men or Black women. I mean, Latinos, Asian American. Because the rationale is that Black women in elected positions usually vote the same way because they're Democrats mostly. And what I wanted to show is that there's much more nuances to how these women think about politics and policy. And intersectionality enabled me to do that. So I was able to look at the different intersecting identities, such as sexual orientation, motherhood status, generational cohort, nativity, that helped animate how they saw politics and policy. So although they might have voted on something the same way, like if you're getting a choice between yay or nay, and there's not much light in there, but how someone gets to that political calculus is the part that intrigued me. So someone could talk about, I understood this as a policy problem because of my experiences with X. And someone else had said the same thing, but arrived at the same vote choice. And I think we miss the richness of political decision-making if we only narrow this down to your identity and your vote choice. And that's what's missing. So in the book, I look at 3 different policy case studies, and I show that Black women have thought through these things in really calculated and complicated ways that get missed, or this nuance or dynamism in how they think through political calculus gets missed. But also there's kind of tensions between them. There's tensions among, right? So it's not this kumbaya where Black women are going to hold hands and vote the same way, or even like each other. Like, let's be real. So, right. So I talk about some of this in the book. And then I also bring in how my own identity as a Black woman researching Black women helps me to gain access or understand certain things. I'll give a quick example. I feel like I'm talking a lot. I'm sorry, y'all.
We want to learn from you, so please keep talking. Yeah.
So I went down to Maryland in 2009 to learn about the Religious Freedom and Protection of Marriage Act, which basically was like a precursor for allowing same-sex marriage. And I had a legislator like literally hold up her Bible and be like, here's the Bible, put it down, next question. And I was like, oh. So what that means is, or how as an interpretivist and a qualitative researcher, what that means is, to me, right, she's saying, all you need to know, Black girl, is that the Bible tells me my answer to this. And because you are a Black girl, you know the culture, you know what's up. I don't have to even spell out for you these these biblical premises for why same-sex marriage is not right. And I think, would she have held up the Bible if I was not a Black woman doing research? That she did not think that I had a similar upbringing or understanding of what the Bible means. Sidebar, I do not agree with that, right? The way that, it was, identity was deployed, it was like, we are the same, you get this.
Right.
And there's a lot of this kind of shorthand that I think would have been lost on a researcher who was not a Black woman. It probably wouldn't even have come up in those ways. Or it would have been a very politically correct response that told you nothing. at the same time, right? So, right. So I think it's really important for political scientists to not be just white cisnet men, but to have people from different kind of backgrounds who can interpret and understand what people are saying and why they're doing different things.
Yeah, I mean, we talked a lot in last week's show. We had Andrea Benjamin on, and by the way, in every show from now on, there will be at least 2 Andreas or Andreas or Andreas or whatever going forward. So thank you for being our spokesperson for all non-Andreas and Andreas in the world, Nadia. We're glad to have your perspective. But we talked a lot about, the importance of having a lot more perspectives in political science, and I don't know that we actually got to spend that much time on this particular point, which is access to research subjects or ability to actually, talk to people from certain groups in a way that I couldn't do, that a white man couldn't do, that a black man couldn't do, and so forth.
Sure.
Andrea, are you comfortable sharing in the fields either of comedy and or law? I mean, is intersectionality a term that's used much in your experience? Is it a term people know?
No, I haven't found it to be a term that people use a lot. I mean, for comedians, we say things like let's get some color on this show. Yep. We talk about things like bringing in diversity. And then in my Woke Law show and soon to be podcast, I deliberately try to get Black women and Black men in particular on the show because I want to show the diversity of thought. I want to show the nuance. And every time I have a Black person on the show, a Black woman on the show, we never agree on everything. And I think that's important to people to know. I always say to the audience, we are not monolithic. Mm-hmm. We're very nuanced. I recorded an episode a few weeks ago, and I had a friend of mine on the show, Marcella Anyongo. She's a Black woman as well. We both have afros, although mine's bigger. It's not a competition, but mine's bigger.
Noted for the record. Yep.
Thank you. And we were having a discussion about a law. I can't remember what law. Oh, it was a swearing law in Rhode Island. There's a law that says you can't cuss in the entire state. You're not allowed to swear, or you'll be fined $5. And so I
want to see that enforced, but okay, separate exercise.
And my position was, because other states have laws that say you shouldn't swear within a certain feet of a playground or maybe a school. And so I was saying, I think I'd agree with this law if there were rules about doing it within a school. And she was like, oh, so you're a fascist. And I was like, wow. And it was really fun and very lighthearted, but she has strong beliefs. She's like, no, I think you should be able to swear anywhere you want. She's like, playgrounds are tough. Okay. Yeah. Parents have a hard time and sometimes they need to cuss. And so I think there is so much diversity of thought. Anybody who's been in a room of Black people, in your family or even in my church, I grew up in a church, an all Black church and all Black family, and people don't agree about anything, but that's okay. There's some things we agree on and that's why we're in the same room. Yeah, but not everything. So, and I love this example you gave, Nadia, of her holding up the Bible, because I feel like, was that one of my aunts who did that to you? Because they love to swing the Bible in my family. I have a lot of preachers, all female preachers in my family.
So what were some of the other examples, Nadia? So we got the Bible, and I assume that means chapter 2 is just a picture of this woman with a Bible in your book, and that's it. So I'll look that up. But what were some of the other kind of things that you learned in this work with the legislators in Maryland?
So that these women really see themselves outside. This is my sister Dingin. Hi, Lindsay.
Nice. Hi, sister. And by the way, all my family are shouting, welcome to Washington in 2021, et cetera.
So, can't wait. So we're excited. So the women have a bunch of stories that they wanted to share with academic audiences, and that their entry into politics is something that they want people to know more about, which is why I guess I've kept doing this this strand of research, because it really is it is the academic side, right, that I'm able to share. Right, these are the policies that these Black women differ on, this is how they got to their decisions. But really the thing that keeps me going, that this is a group of under-theorized and under-researched people that the discipline knows nothing about, or very, very few things about this population. And what we do know is often looking at them in the aggregate in a statistical model, where there's usually so few Black women that they all kind of wash out in any kind of meaningful ways. But the women that I've spoken with have been really forthright because they want their narratives to be told. In a lot of ways, right, they want to help others that are coming behind them. And some people just need to, air some stuff out. They want to say, like, what happened to me, girl, in the Democratic Party? How they used me and abused me, or what they would, they just want to kind of get some of this stuff off their chest. And I think that, I consider it a real honor. So the work that I do, I try to present their narratives without a lot of me in there. I want to be the framework, the kind of the scaffolding to allow them to speak. But then also I think about little Black girls like me who want to study political science and then don't see myself reflected, who, have to read textbooks and accounts of this is how women vote, this is how Black men legislate, and then don't see anyone like me. And these women are here and they want to talk and they want to share their stories. And the other part is that many of them are the first in so many regards, right? Which is the sad thing. I'm sure, Andre, like you could probably go, for days of number of people that, in your line of work that are still building down like barriers of saying like, I am the first in, in my district or in this circuit. And this is something that I think our students need to see, particularly people that are living in this post-racial moment, or people that think they're in this post-racial millennials, like we got it all together. We are the most diverse group of Americans living, but there are still like structural barriers towards people of color, to women, to non-binary folk. And they want their research, they want to be reflected in the research. And I think it's my job as a professor to share that. And particularly with the next crop of students who are who take these classes in our next generation, because the fight isn't over. And it's really easy to be lulled to sleep by numbers of this changing demographic and this very, this idea that we're all going to be more progressive because older racists or sexists are dying out. It's like, that's not.
Yeah. A, that's not going to not happening, and B, it's not a great short-term plan either. Just wait, everyone. Let's call that a plan. So when you think about, you also do some work on Black women as candidates and how they're evaluated when they run for office. Are you able to share some of your findings in that area?
I'm super excited about this.
Okay.
So Danielle Lemmy and I have a book that's under contract with Oxford University Press that we have to get off our computer to send to the publisher July 1st. So I'm working feverishly to get this off. But it's all about the politics of appearance for Black women. And what I'm interested in is, in some ways, like speaking back to myself from this 2014 book where I'm doing this deep dive into looking at intersectionality and Black women's experiences around generation, nativity, right, motherhood status, and saying they have different experiences. But this new book around candidates, elected officials is on hair and skin tone. And it's saying that these women have different experiences because they look different, right? Like no one is going to look at them and say they're not a Black woman, which is something that, throw you back almost 10 years now, when Harry Reid said in private comments of Barack Obama, he spoke with no intelligible Negro dialect. And you can kind of close your ears and forget you're talking to a Black man. That never happens for a Black woman. And it's not my dialect, right? Like, it is what I look like. The fact that my hair is locked speaks a lot about how race and gendered is embodied. And so I get in this book, I'm speaking to colorism. I'm speaking to respectability politics. I'm speaking to this natural hair movement and how younger women are fighting to be seen on their terms. This growing YouTube movement of like makeup and doing it all yourself, beat your face. But like, this is something that young women are doing and Black women are doing. and they should be elected to Congress, right? Like all of this matters in some ways, right? But like it's what's in your brains. But what we find are that women are super cognizant that these things matter, and two, voters are holding them accountable. That the darker you are, the more kinky curly your hair is, the less likely they are to see you as someone who's electable.
Can I ask a question about what is respectability politics?
Oh yeah, thanks. So respectability politics is a term that was coined in a 1992 work by historian Evelyn Higginbotham, who showed how Black club women in the right after like Reconstruction and Jim Crow era are trying to outperform white social norms as a way to protect themselves from racialized and sexual violence. So it's saying like I can outperform white Victorian modes of what femininity should look like if I'm adhering to these things to say that I am a human, basically. You can't harm me. I've done all the things that you value in your culture, right? I have, I don't speak loud in public. I don't chew gum and spit it on the floor. I don't leave the house with my hair tied up. I remind my children to look presentable in public. I am engaging in white supremacist society like a white person and a white person of means. So therefore, you should treat me the same way you would treat that white person, white woman of means, because I'm adhering to all the things that you deem to be respectable in your society. So it was a way to combat racism and sexism. However, right, the byproducts of that turned into policing of our own culture, right? So like, so think about like the protests that are happening, or particularly those that had happened. There's a lot of talk about this in 2014 when protesters in Ferguson were told to pick up your pants. Martin Luther King never protested with sagging pants. Black men wore suits. You should wear suits too. Like that's all a way of saying you need to treat me as a human being based on what I look like, not because I have inalienable rights as a human being. And that's what respectability politics tries to turn on its head. Is doesn't matter. I mean, so Brittany Cooper talks about disrespectability and like being very clear that I am like, oh, I was going to curse.
You can, yeah. We're not in Rhode Island. You can say whatever you want. Yeah, we'll get pulled from YouTube Rhode Island, but that's it. Or I'll pay the $5. That's fine. Yeah.
Yes. No. I'm not paying Rhode Island $5. But basically, like, fuck respectability, right? Like I'm a human. Treat me like a person. It doesn't matter if I am outside with my hair tied up or curlers in my hair. It doesn't matter if I have, 5 kids, my father and my baby's fathers. Like I am still a woman that deserves to be treated well without being killed in the streets like a dog. And go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, what has your research shown with these women that you've studied in relation to respectability politics? Because I mean, I work in a field and for a company where I'm usually the only Black woman in the room. And so there's a level of behavior. I don't know if it would be considered respectability politics, but there's a way as a lawyer you're supposed to dress and speak and communicate and relate with the jury, with the judge. There's certain, would you consider that to be respectability politics in one part? And then the other question I have is the women that you're studying that are running for office, how are they relating to that term? Because I would be surprised and kind of excited and intrigued if there was somebody who's like, I'm not playing your game. I'm going to wear whatever I want to wear. I'm going to do whatever I want to do. And I'm like, would that person get the money they need to run? Would they have the access to, I'm very curious.
Yeah, no. I mean, and particularly there's the pipeline to elected office is usually through like your route, right? Having a law degree, being a practicing attorney. So there's this ways that professionalism gets conflated into respectability politics. And if you think about like what's respectable in certain professions, they are still based on these Euro-American norms of what we think our bodies should adhere to and comport to. And that wipes out people with particular hair textures and melanin. So the Crown Act is something I study in this book, and it's a law that allows women, or I mean, I focus on Black women, but a law that allows people with Afro-textured hair to wear their hair in whatever way it grows out of their scalp. So you showing up to the jury with your fro would be covered under the Crown Act if a firm told you that you had to straighten your hair in order to present this case, right? That you would have legal standing to sue under the Civil Rights Act and saying that you should be able to wear your hair this way because that's how naturally your hair grows out. But this ways that hair professionalism gets conflated in these policies of respectability is real, right? So women are walking this fine line. They're saying, I want to be seen as a professional. This is what politicians look like. But I also recognize that for me to look like a respectable politician means I have to spend hundreds of dollars getting my hair straightened. It means that I have to spend hours doing that to my hair or getting someone to do it to my hair, which takes me away from my constituents, away from doing my job. So there is this fine line. But the most surprising, not surprising, I guess, the thing that keeps coming up, the repeated thing, is that it's generational. So there are millennials who feel like this is professional, right? Like I am the professional. The way I come out as packaged is professional. So y'all gonna get whatever comes out this box. But the other part is that this is not something that Black men usually deal with. So women are really talking about, you're right. I need to get these donors. I need to get people on board. I have women who tell me stories where they blow dry their hair, put crochet braids in, or they put micro braids in just to run for re-election or to run for election. And then once they get in the state house, they go back to their fro, they go back to the whatever kind of they want to do. But then no, in order to keep the job or to look professional, right, when they're going on the news, they blow it out or put their wig on. Wow. So it's really walking this fine line. And, what for me is sad, it's saddening, it's frustrating, it's maddening, is that we know that others don't have to deal with this. And there was a woman who I talked to in St. Louis, was running for a statewide attorney's position, and was like very sad talking to me about her hair, that she had relaxed it because she felt like she couldn't win with her hair not straight. Wow. Then her husband preferred her hair to be straight and long. But how she liked her hair was in her twist outs, right? She liked having her hair natural. She loses the election and she's stuck. I mean, not stuck, but she has to live with the consequences of having relaxed hair. And yeah, I just felt really, really sad because in her voice, in her face, when she was sharing her decision to chemically relax her hair, you could tell this was not what she wanted to do, right? She did this because she was playing the game, because she felt like this was the professional look. And to do all of this, to put other people ahead of her, right, her husband, these perceived constituents or these voters, and then to lose anyway, and then to either decide to cut off all your hair or you wear it in a style that is not your preferred style for months until you have enough hair to do the style that you really want. I mean, my heart just went out to her, and I know that is not something that other groups or women are talking about or having to do to run for office.
I want to shout out that we are raising money for the Black Women's PAC. I'm curious, Nadia, and also to folks watching, you can ask questions to Nadia and Andrea. Any questions you have, I'll send them over into the conversation. But I'm curious, what recommendations in your research do organizations like the Black Women's PAC say to women in these contexts? Is it like, well, this is the game? Is it do whatever you want, we support you? I mean, how does that play out in like campaign strategizing? It sounds like a lose-lose situation, frankly. Yeah.
Well, so one of the things that I was so thankful for in the Black Women's PAC, we did, Danielle Lemmy and I did focus groups. So the women really talked to and amongst themselves. So these are elected officials and candidates, people that were aspiring to be elected officials. And they worked it out in some ways amongst themselves, which I think is the real telling part, because there were some women in the group, some older women who were really in some ways acting like gatekeepers, right? Like, if you want to get in on the Democratic Party in my county, girl, this is it, right? And some of the younger women were saying, this is gatekeeping. And they were explaining in very genuine, real ways how this kind of respectability politics was hurting their own campaigns. And I think that some of these older women heard them. And I mean, so as a researcher, I was just there to kind of guide and facilitate the conversation. I mean, if I were to get some consulting gigs on the side, perhaps I might speak up and saying that I think it's really important for a woman to run as her most authentic self. So I talked to numerous women throughout the part of this research in multiple campaigns. And what I found always is that when a person doesn't feel comfortable in any parts of how she is told to present herself, she has lost. Because voters see through, like, you are not authentic. Like, I don't know who you are, but what you're portraying isn't it. And, like, I talked to a woman in Virginia who was told to basically wear like a Hillary
Clinton. From Virginia.
Yes.
Yeah, so she was told to wear like a Hillary Clinton pantsuit, basically. Like, she's a young woman, right? Like 33 something. And was told, like, go get you some St. John's. You know, that's you. That's what's gonna win. And she's like, I like wearing bright colors. I like dresses. I like things that are like fun, flirty. I want to be able to wear a statement necklace. And she had hired a very high profile, like Beltway consulting firm who put her in like this one size fits all. And she lost. And I had the ability to talk with her before the campaign, before the election, and then some years after the election. And she shared that she feels like people just didn't see her because she felt not like herself and she couldn't relate to people. And I think that's the same thing that happened with the woman in St. Louis. So, I mean, if I'm getting paid some consultant dollars, I would tell folks, let the candidate be who she is authentically. I think there are ways that you can, you know, modify or be appropriate for situations, right? I'm not saying come out and just be like, you know, a tank top and, you know, like in a board meeting or something. But you're right. But if she feels comfortable wearing a red lipstick and hoop earrings, let her shine in that.
I really relate to everything you're saying. I mean, even in particular, the red lipstick and hoop earrings, because red lipstick is definitely part of my trial. Like when I'm going on trial, I have to wear that. Like that invokes the power. It invokes like my partnership with the divine. I'm like, we're about to go in here and win.
Yes. Yeah.
And the hoop earrings too. And I was talking to a colleague and the topic of my earrings came up and she was just like, yeah, I don't think that earrings that large are professional. And I was like, okay, well, this is my version of professional. Like I mean, I'm not wearing earrings right now because of the headphones or whatever, but hoop earrings and red lipstick is how I roll. And even in particular with the outfits, like when I'm on trial, I like to wear, you know, I like to look cute, you know, I'll put on a little blazer, but it's definitely cut in a certain way and form fitting. And I just like, this is me before the jury. Like, this is who I am. And whereas wearing like something boxy and like a suit, that's just not who I am. And when I started working, I had relaxed hair, not because anyone forced me to have relaxed hair. It's just, that's what I had. And then over the years, I've been a trial attorney for 13 years. Like about 5 years ago, I transitioned to natural hair, and people had a strong reaction. And the people who had the most strong reaction, who at least communicated to me, were other people of color, other Black people. Let me be specific. Black people, and they were they were kind of, I think, and they were older. I think they came up at a time when this is not what you do. And nobody said don't do it, but it was just like, okay, I see that you're making some transitional moves. And I'm like, yes, I am. And yes, I am. And even sometimes playing with wrapping like scarves around my head. And I had an experience with a manager, was not expecting to see me look that way that day. And he literally like leaped in the air and like jumped back, like wasn't. And then he was like, did you send that email? I'm like, yes, I did. He's like, okay, bye. And got himself together, came back minutes later and seemed to have recovered from the headscarf. But I think there's a lot of ways to to express yourself. So I like what you're saying.
I mean, it happens. I'm thankful that you share this, particularly like, because we know that the law is a gateway into like people that are running for office. But I had the same thing. I wanted to go natural. I've like toyed with it. I've gone, come back, But I wanted to lock my hair. And I remember going on the job market in political science and being told that I would be a scary Black feminist if my hair was natural. And I was. And the other part was, and then the side comment was, I don't know why people would think that though, because you're petite and you smile a lot, but I think the hair, right? And I was just like, and I still think about this a lot because I am literally so happy that my hair is locked that I can't believe I waited until 2015 to do this. Like I should have just done this. Yeah, like 5 years.
I feel the same way. I just think about all the time wasted at beauty parlors, all the money wasted.
Carol.
It was just,
I'm not happy. And like, I'm doing this not for me.
Well, we have a question from Cole in the audience. And by the way, the audience, I think I'm only seeing out of the parts of it, but I think Nadia, your family and my family are realizing that we're all like related to everyone on the show, and so it's this bizarre family reunion happening, like to my cousin and your brother, some of that. But I have a question here for really for both of you from Cole. Do you know of any research about just what you were talking about, the economic impact of these different grooming standards? Like how much more money do Black women spend versus other groups? And I would even add to Cole's question, time and the opportunity cost that comes with that as well. Do you know?
I love the phrase opportunity cost. Go on.
Yes.
Yeah, like that's really all I did on Sunday. It was like 5 hours just doing my kids' hair. But I have 3 little girls. So the reason why my hair is locked, because I can't do my hair and their hair. But yeah, so Black consumers spend upwards of $1 billion in hair, right? And right before the recession, I think $4.7 million was spent in 2008 on Black hair care products alone. So that's not talking about going to the salon and getting your hair done. Now, this is complicated by the fact that we know that Black women make about 56 cents on the dollar of what white men make, right? So you have a community of folks who are not making a substantial amount of money, and then a large number of their money, is going towards hair care because and a bunch of particularly sociological studies that have shown that women feel the need to have this professional look on their job, which means that they can't go in there looking like me or Andrea, right? Like they need to have a different kind of pulled together look. And just recently I read that, making small gains, I guess. So Walmart has stopped casing Black hair care products behind glass, which they have to you have to go get a manager to come unlock the glass so that you can go buy your Shea Moisture or Carol's Daughter or whatever you're buying.
Wow.
Because the thought is that Black folks are stealing these hair care products. But the side thing is that hair care products for Afro-textured hair are expensive, right? Like these are not products that, and you're using multiple products, right? So these are not an inexpensive part of your daily regimen. So hair care takes a long time, and hair care products are expensive, and it's something that usually comes out of Black household pockets that don't get much of a return, and particularly in terms of who sells hair care products, who sells these Black hair care products. So there's a host of literature around the rise of Asian beauty supply stores, and that money is going from Black communities into Asian communities, not into their own pockets. And then, and then the cost of doing your hair. And then also we've seen states here, like in Indiana, who were trying to make Black women get licenses to braid hair, or some were trying to rescind licenses, having to have Black women have licenses to braid hair, like cosmopolitan licenses, sorry.
Wow.
And what does that mean when this has literally been a skill that Blacks have passed down for eons?
Yeah.
Like no exaggeration, eons, that now needs to be licensed to practice this hair care, protective styling.
I have such strong feelings about this because I do not pick my hair I don't pick someone to do my hair based on whether or not they have a license.
Yeah.
I find somebody whose hair looked good and I ask them who did it. Or it's my grandmother or my cousin or, interesting.
It's like, you just don't understand how Black hair works at all. And that's literally what I'm trying to do in this book, and then map it onto politics and political science. So it's not just a conversation of like sister girls talking, which is actually how this book turned out, like how this book started.
That's awesome.
Sidebar. But really, right, it's political, because these women can't get elected based on what their hair looks like, or the texture of their hair, their skin tone. What are we missing out, right? And what my first book shows is that these women aren't in the power to advocate for communities that are often underserved.
Right. I was just, trying to get a lot of people at the American Political Science Association to to engage in this conversation and see that it's extremely relevant to politics is not an easy feat. I will say, having been to some of these conferences. A question for Andrea from Charisse, who wants to know: are you treated differently when you express your style in the courtroom, et cetera? I mean, you gave the example from before, but in the courtroom, or do you find that you're treated differently depending on how you're dressed or how you're expressing any style?
No, I don't. I find, I've tried cases mainly in one particular courthouse in Brooklyn. And so when I go in there, it's like a reunion. I'm seeing like old friends. And then, I find that the more relaxed I am, like the more in my body and like wearing the clothes that make me feel good, then I'm able to have a better impact, I think, on the people that I interact with. And I have a sense of humor, so that helps as well. But no, I haven't found any negative things to happen by going natural. And I do find that, especially more Black women will come up to me and be like, so what are you using? What are you putting in your hair? Like, I'm thinking about going natural and that kind of thing. It's actually, I think, brought in more connection than I had before. And it feels fun also to point out that it's my white man who was like really the instigator in me going natural. He's back there going, because I showed him the Chris Rock movie, Good Hair, and he was like, wait a minute, I didn't know that there were chemicals, like that's what you're doing when you go there to the salon. And I was like, yeah, but this is what we do. And so he kind of like started to be like, well, why, because when I met him, my hair was relaxed. We've been together for 8 years. When I met him, my hair was relaxed, and so I transitioned through the relationship. So I find that it's been a positive thing, and he likes to take credit for the relaxing.
How interesting that he would take credit for that. That's very interesting. Nadia, we're nearing the end of our time, but I want to make sure that we get to your political science academic activism work that you've done in the area of Me Too as well, within the field of political science, and also as it relates to intersectionality, Me Too, over gender, race, et cetera, and how that plays out, because that's a very big topic. Are you able to share what you've been doing, your work in the Me Too movement space?
Yeah, sure. So some colleagues of mine, Rebecca Gill, Libby Sharrow, and Stella Rouse, and I have a $1 million NSF grant to work with the American Political Science Association to figure out ways that we can curtail and pertain sexual harassment, misconduct, and violence in the discipline. And this came about because Rebecca Gill publicly tweeted about her experiences with Bill Jacoby when she was a graduate student on a panel at the Southern Political Science Association, and called it sexual harassment. And it just lit the whole political science world abuzz. And Rebecca will be the first to share that some of the attention that she gathered was because of her large Twitter presence, but also she's a conventionally pretty, blonde, tall, white woman, right? And so the things that women of color, trans people, non-binary folks were dealing with were just pushed under the rug. And so what I wanted to do is work with Rebecca and the team to really amplify the voices of others, right? So Libby is a queer person. Stella is an immigrant from Colombia. And right, so together we're like this intersectional dream team of like, let me tell you who you're not going to forget in these conversations of sexual harassment.
Intersectional dream team is an amazing phrase, but yes.
And so what we're doing is that we're trying to include all these other ways that people experience sexual harassment, violence, and misconduct, and be advocates. So on one hand, right, I work with this more activist side of the discipline who really call out poor behavior and do like real grassroots activism. We set Twitter campaigns, letter writers, GoFundMe's, like we do that. Like we are really about it. And then the other side is like kind of the more buttoned up political science professor side that says, I'm going to get some data and I'm going to study this. And I'm going to tell you how you can do better. And so
that was a beautiful encapsulation of the political science experience. Thank you so much. It's a service to the show and to the field. Sorry. Yes.
Well, that's what it looks like. You're right.
Yep.
So that's what we're doing there. But I mean, so I'm thankful that we can marry both sides of this activist that will roll up and we will do the naming and the shaming and be advocates and allies, sharing resources with people. Who are the great lawyers to contact? Who do you need to connect to in your state that's dealing with these things? How can you file a Title IX claim, right? So all of these really important activist things. But on the other side, right, how do we make the discipline better? Like what are some policies that we can do? Why? So I lead the climate study part. And basically what we know is that if you are a department that has a sexual harasser, you're probably a department that has a problem with race. You're probably a department that has a problem with like immigrants, right? Like you have a lot of other bad things that are going on there. So we want to be able to just expose all of the things at once. So yeah, I'm really, really proud of that work. Unfortunately, we've been on ice because of COVID. So we've now had to retool how we're doing everything. So it's all going to be online. So we'll do online trainings, we'll do online focus groups, online interviews. The annual conference is going online. So we're trying to figure out the best way to collect this data and do this research in this online space that doesn't lead the same kind of relationship building, and this like one-on-one community that particularly people that have experienced sexual harassment really need to feel, right? Like, so I think there'll be we're trying to figure out how to mitigate some of this impersonal things through Zoom or WebEx.
For a very, very naive split moment when you said, oh, well, because of COVID, we're on ice. I was like, oh, right, because sexual harassment stops when you're not in person. And then I was like, oh, right, the internet. Right, never mind. Like, that's not what happens. Yeah.
Thinking, I wish.
Yeah.
Nadia, I'm curious about your thoughts or experience around the way Black women relate with feminism. Because I bristle when I hear usually white feminists talk about the patriarchy, because I'm like, are you talking about Black men in power? Because there's not a lot. Like, what are you talking about? And so I'm curious what your what your experience is of that.
You are not alone, right? There's a great article I assigned to my undergrad that calls feminism the F word, right? So what about the F word? Because people don't even want to say it, right? In communities of color. And then the also interesting-ish thing is that men of color rate off the charts in terms of on feminist scales because they've grown up in communities where they've seen women do it all. So they work, right? So they believe in pay equity. They see women take care of kids, so they believe in child care provisions, right? All these things, but then yet still have these very regressive, nationalist, patriarchal views in some ways too. But yeah, so what I try to help my students to think about are some of the policies that feminists stand for. And that usually gets people on board as inequality between the sexes, right? Like, so people look like, yeah, I get that. Like, I'm on board with that. If that's what a feminist is, I don't like the word, but you can call me that. But what that doesn't do is get to this really messy work of how second wave white feminists have treated Black women, right? It doesn't get at the way that black men have this diminished form of patriarchy, and in some ways you're still trying to reclaim some of that on Black women's bodies, right? So we see that particularly this Black Lives Matter movement where we don't say her name. We see this just recently, right, where Black men were acting out in some very toxic masculine ways against Black women's bodies because they rebuffed their advances. So feminism gives us a language to talk about this very gendered bias. And I think, right, we need to be able to grapple with the phenomenon, even if you're unhappy or feel uncomfortable with the terminology. But I can't think of a better theoretical framework to help us make sense of what's going on in this world that's thinking really systematically through gender-based oppression and patriarchy, sexism. And if there is something out there, I mean, I really believe that there are bad actors who have co-opted, maybe not co-opted, they were at the start, right? But have just reframed feminism in ways that are unpalatable to folks. And so I think we need to call out those things that are unpalatable, but then really also strip it down to like, okay, what is feminism? And feminism at the bare bones, right, are equality between the sexes.
That's helpful. That's helpful to hear you say that, because I'm still a little bristly, but it's helpful hearing what you have to say. I mean, obviously I want to be treated equally, but I have that feeling of like, I need you to take into account the experience of a Black woman, the experience of a Black man. I think we kind of whitewash feminism, and I'm like, you're not including me, and I don't like that.
Yeah, I know, I feel you. Like it took me, even though I espouse these ideas, it took me a long time to feel comfortable calling myself a Black feminist, and I put that modifier on there because
the modifier helps.
Yes, the modifier helps a lot. And right, like Black feminism is radical at its core, right? Like these are people that wrote the Kawaii River Collective. These are people, and who wrote the Kawaii River Statement, right? These are people like Mariah Stewart, who said, you know, like, I am a woman too, right? Like, are my experiences not the same? And we're calling white women out from the beginning. We're calling Black women out, Black men out from the beginning. And as in the case of the Kawaii, we're calling out Black women who are not radical enough. So I think about them as my intellectual foremothers, not kind of Susan B. Anthony and the like. Like,
Okay.
We have time for one final question. It comes from Nadine, who has a question for Nadia, who wants to know whether the violations of sexual mistreatment are only identified, are they focusing on colleagues in the field? Is this new, and why and how has this behavior been tolerated?
Sure. So in the Me Too Poli-Sci, we do focus on the field of political science more broadly. But I can share a little bit about the case of a colleague, Vanessa Tyson, who's a political science professor in California, who was sexually assaulted by the lieutenant governor of Virginia.
Oh my God.
Yes, and the Me Too Poli-Sci collective wrote for her, right? We wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post. We collected money for her legal fees. A lot of us are friends and good colleagues of Vanessa, and we're there doing emotional hand-holding because she took a lot of, just a lot of people had some negative things to say about her, and why would she come forward now? So, right, there are real life consequences for Black women who come forward to say that they have been sexually assaulted or harassed or experienced sexual violence. So Me Too Poli-Sci, the activist side isn't just the let's collect data and, use our powers of the regression to make things better. Right. But it's actually to say, like, no, there's sisters in our discipline that need our help. So yeah, they're separate, but very much so interrelated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, as a to sort of we're coming to the end of our time, and I just want to acknowledge that as a white person who is also a feminist, I appreciate that this word is too clunky and wraps up too many experiences into one big category. I want to reference actually my cousin Courtney, who's watching, wrote something much earlier in the conversation today where she said, "I love how political scientists just define terms in perfect language without hesitation and in such detailed historical context. It's like a superpower." And I love that. Yeah. Political scientists are very precise. And I would just say, I think the term feminism, I'm glad there's, the term Black feminism, and the word feminism is not, is whitewashing. And I do think that's problematic and not specific enough. And so I will own that shortcoming for sure. We have come to the end of our time. I'm so grateful to both of you for being here and talking with us. I'm thankful to everyone who joined us in the chat and who's watching. And a big thank you to everyone who donated. You can still donate. And we will send all donations to the Black Women's PAC right away. I will send it all. You'll have documentation that it all went there. And so the money this week will go straight there. Finally, Nadia and Andrea, I know I gave you a big elaborate introduction, but that was a while ago. Where can folks find you? How can they follow your work and accomplishments and writings and everything? Nadia, where can folks find you?
Sure. So on all social media, I am Brown PhD Girl. It's Brown like my name, PhD like my degree.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm Brown PhD Girl. Find me on Instagram and Twitter.
Awesome. Fabulous. And Andrea, what about you?
You can follow me on Instagram at Andrea Coleman Comedy, and my website is also Andrea Coleman Comedy, and my Twitter is Andrea Coleman BK, because I think it would have been too long on Twitter if I said Andrea Coleman Comedy.
Right.
But yeah, and be on the lookout for my Woke Laws podcast and live show.
Yes, I feel like there's a lot of laws that came up even today that we could have your take on.
And I need your take on the Crown Act, Andrea.
Yeah,
I need your take, and I'm going to show it to my students if we get back to classroom. But even if not, like the online will work.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, and I'm going to kidnap you and your brain, Nadia, because I'm so excited by the work that you're doing. It's so specific and needed, and it makes me so excited.
Likewise.
Awesome. Well, thank you both. My pleasure. I basically just pick people who I think are awesome, and you're both awesome, and so here you are. So the pleasure is all mine, and thank you all for watching. I will see you all next week. We have Christian Davenport from the University of Michigan here to talk about government use of violence around the world and in the United States. And we will be touching on policing and all of that. So very cheerful stuff coming up. A very important conversation, and Christian is awesome. So we will see you all next week at 7 p.m. And thank you both again. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.